all the trouble you've started?
Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio of freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it.
Right, you tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Solutions Network with Gail, Marie, and Nicole. It's a beautiful Sunday evening here. Nicole, how are you doing?
I'm doing great as usual. Enjoying the weather.
Yes. It's like we have summer in spring. We're getting closer to summer, though.
Yeah, exactly.
So welcome, everybody. We have Nicole and I are just going to chat about various things for the first hour, and at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have a special guest, Michael Tellinger, the leader of the Ubuntu Party, will be joining us. He's right now on tour with the Modern Knowledge Tour, and he's going to take some time out to chat with us, so we're really excited about that. Until then, so Nicole, we were talking earlier about banking. Maybe we should go into some more conversation about that.
Yeah, exactly. Like we've had the pleasure of interviewing Michael Tellinger, and he's launched the Ubuntu Party, and their main focus was banking fraud and who controls all the money, and as well as the economy worldwide. And this is the problem that every country is having right now. So if you're looking, what we're going to be doing is, before Michael comes in, he's going to be coming in around 7 o'clock because he's doing a live show in Montreal right now. And then they're heading to Ottawa and then Toronto on June 6th. So that should be pretty interesting. We'll be meeting him face-to-face. I've already met with Richard Dolan and Dave and Chris. So now we'll be meeting the rest of the people again. But I'd like to be able to really get everybody to focus on some of the predictions that were made last September of 2013. And this was a Canadian billionaire that predicts the end of U.S. dollar as world's reserve currency. Ned Goodman, during a lecture that he had. And then you'll be able to listen to a second video. The first one is for about 7 minutes. You hear him speak. Nobody really believes him. But now, this week, what happened is the India and China and Russia were involved in oil deals. And then you'll get to hear the rest of the story, and that there's no more speculation. And these gentlemen really explain in detail how the U.S. money came about, and it didn't have any back currencies. And I think it's important for everybody to understand what they are saying here. A lot of people say, oh, well, they predicted the fall and blah, blah, and it hasn't really happened. But they go into detail. And I think everybody would benefit by seeing what's actually happening so that we can make sound decisions and really see how we as citizens can change our future and change what these banksters are doing and how they're manipulating all of us. So I'm going to play the first video, and hopefully I'll be able to get it on the screen here, and people will try to forgive me, but I'm hoping that I'll be able to capture it on screen. And if not, just give me a few seconds and just listen. And, if people can even just close their eyes and listen to every word he's saying, and then when we play the second video, they'll be able to really understand what they're talking about. So, shall we start?
Okay, let's go.
Okay. Okay, just a minute here.
This interview is brought to you by First Majestic Silver Corp, one of the world's purest and fastest growing silver mining companies. In my view, the dollar is about to become dethroned as the world's de facto currency, basically. I'll just tell you how I come to that conclusion so quickly. The new president of China, his name is Xi Jinping, his first visit on the day of his becoming president was at his request to meet with Mr. Putin. And he immediately made a deal with Mr. Putin to get all the oil that he needs, which he can buy in renminbi. Now, the big part of the U.S. dollar being the world's reserve currency is that at the time that Nixon gave up the gold standard, he had Henry Kissinger as his advisor, and Dr. Kissinger very, very brilliantly convinced the Saudis that they must sell their oil in U.S. dollars. And that's the way the U.S. dollar became the reserve currency of the world, because everybody needed oil. The only oil that was available in those days, we didn't have shale. We had the shale. We didn't have the brilliance of how to use it. But everybody needed oil, and they had to buy it with U.S. dollars. And that's how the dollar got to where it is today. It's about to become dethroned as the world's de facto currency. The closing words that the reporters reported from Xi Jinping and Mr. Putin was shaking hands, and we have an international partnership that is very important. So you've got China and Russia, and we've seen it now in the Syrian thing. I could not think of something more ridiculous than trying to solve the Syrian thing by throwing a missile out from the Mediterranean and not knowing how many innocent people you're going to kill because somebody killed innocent people. It makes no sense at all, but that was Mr. Obama's game, and he was going to do it. Frankly, the Israelis have bombed Syria 4 times in the last 24 months. You never read about it in the newspaper. They took out their nuclear plant. They took out 3 warehouses of chemical weapons. No need for a missile. They just sent in jets with pilots who dropped bombs. So the dollar is becoming dethroned as far as I'm concerned. In 1929, the supply of paper money was limited because it was backed by silver. Our current dollar, US, is backed by nothing. So people would use the dollar because they could turn it in and get silver. The Chinese have $3.5 trillion US dollars. And they're spending these dollars as quickly as they can. And it will not be long before the rest of us in the world and the US will be thinking likewise. I do. As we buy things to protect our future purchase power. In the 30s, everyone wanted US dollars. Today, everyone wants to get rid of them. Buying hard assets is what you'll hear from many people in the business that I'm in. We're headed to a period of stagflation, maybe serious inflation, but stagflation for sure. And the United States will be losing the privilege of being able to print at its will of the world's reserve currency, a period that will be very inflationary. And I can tell you that before that happens, it is likely going to become quite ugly. We're living through a very uncertain atmosphere, and it's all related to politics and money. And interest rates and confidence turns overnight. Investors are not rational. There's no time when the truth takes place. China is the world's largest debt holder. Japan is the second largest debt holder of U.S. money, and they have to act on their own interest, and they are. 1.6% interest rates are not deserved by the United States. Problem is, the United States can't afford to pay anymore. So they don't deserve their bond rating, and they're probably going to lose it. Discretionary spending in the United States is 36% of government spending. There's an excellent chance that the U.S. will soon be determined to be in a recession once again. I believe they already are. It's highly likely that they will be soon determined to be in a recession. 75% of their new jobs are low-wage, part-time, and often government-inspired. Unemployment is understated. Real unemployment is probably closer to 15%. Even Walmart is suffering. The end result of higher government spending, the full employment policy, and the U.S. Federal Reserve's obsession with interest.
Okay. I kind of missed it there.
What did you miss?
I was trying to, well, I clicked and trying to make it bigger.
Oh.
And it took off. I lost the video.
Oh.
Brought to you by First Majestic Silver.
We'll get it back online.
Want to convince the Saudis that they must sell their oil in U.S. dollars.
Okay, where were
and
we?
That's the way the U.S. dollar became the reserve currency of the world, because everybody needed oil. The only oil that was available in those days, we didn't have shale. We had the shale. We didn't have brilliance on how to use it. But shaking hands, and we have an international partnership that is very important.
We'll play it from there.
So you've got China and Russia, and we've seen it now in the Syrian thing. I could not think of something more ridiculous than trying to solve the Syrian thing by throwing a missile from the Mediterranean and not knowing how many innocent people you're going to kill because somebody killed innocent people. It makes no sense at all, but that was Mr. Obama's game, and he was going to do it. Frankly, the Israelis have bombed Syria 4 times in the last 24 months. You never read about it in the newspaper. They took out their nuclear plant. They took out 3 warehouses of chemical weapons. No need for a missile. They just sent in jets with pilots who dropped bombs. So the dollar is becoming dethroned as far as I'm concerned. In 1929, the supply of paper money was limited because it was backed by silver. Our current dollar, U.S., is backed by nothing. So people would use the dollar because they could turn it in and get silver. The Chinese have $3.5 trillion U.S. dollars, and they're spending these dollars as quickly as they can. And it will not be long before the rest of us in the world and the U.S. will be thinking likewise. I do. As we buy things to protect our future purchase power. In the 30s, everyone wanted U.S. dollars. Today, everyone wants to get rid of them. Buying hard assets is what you'll hear from many people in the business that I'm in. We're headed to a period of stagflation, maybe serious inflation, but stagflation for sure. And the United States will be losing the privilege of being able to print at its will of the world's reserve currency, a period that will be very inflationary. And I can tell you that before that happens, it is likely going to become quite ugly. We're living through a very uncertain atmosphere, and it's all related to politics and money. And interest rates and confidence turns overnight. Investors are not rational. There's no time when the truth takes place. China is the world's largest debt holder. Japan is the second largest debt holder of U.S. money, and they have to act on their own interests, and they are. 1.6% interest rates are not deserved by the United States. Problem is, the United States can't afford to pay anymore. So they don't deserve their bond rating, and they're probably going to lose it. Discretionary spending in the United States is 36% of government spending. There's an excellent chance that the U.S. will soon be determined to be in a recession once again. I believe they already are. It's highly likely that they will be soon determined to be in a recession. 75% of their new jobs are low-wage, part-time, and often government-inspired. Unemployment is understated. Real unemployment is probably closer to 15%. Even Walmart is suffering. The end result of higher government spending, the full employment policy, and the U.S. Federal Reserve's obsession with interest rates has been a roller coaster ride along a rising path, and a rising path of inflation, which from time to time is brought under check. But each time it rises again, and after a check has been rising on a fraction of income is received along with the government tax receipts. Since time immemorial, and sovereign kings, emperors, or elected parliamentarians of any sort have used magic money to acquire things or wage wars. And it just doesn't work. I'll quote Jim Grant, and I'll close. You'll rifle through history books in vain to find another monetary era like this one. A reserve currency made of paper, nothing else, is one novelty. A pan-European currency, also weightless, is a second. Chronic and immense imbalancing. A deepening deficit in America is a third. So thank you for listening longer than I intended to speak.
Okay.
Wow.
That's one.
Can I just say something before you put the next one on? I think it's really important, especially here in Ontario, there's an election happening. And the kind of information he's sharing, I mean, people that have been, that are informed and that are researching, none of what he said is really all that surprising. But there's a number of people that are not aware of this sort of information. And with the elections happening, I mean, I think we can get a real insight, if we don't already know, how politics and how politicians work, because they would know this information, or they should know this information. They may be totally ignorant themselves, but their party leaders know. And if you look at, the election that's happening, and it happens to be happening in Ontario, can be happening anywhere, because it's the same recipe. Every election's the same recipe. It's the same, spinning door every couple of years, depending on where you are. If you're not sure that, like, if there's still some question in your mind that they can be trusted and that they have the answers, I mean, take what this gentleman has said in this video and then go and listen to what's being said by the politicians. Because I think there's a huge, to put it nicely, disconnect from what the politicians are sharing. And what's important about this, sharing this, is because the solution that we're talking about is taking back final decision-making authority and becoming aware of these things, like not relying on mainstream or these politicians to be upfront and truthful with us. But that will be part of their role, is to explain once we take back that final decision-making authority.
Exactly. Like, I mean, what the politicians are telling you, they're only going to feed you what they want you to hear, and how you're going to, they want you to believe in them so that you will pick them, right? And it's all delusional, because, I bet you most of them don't even know what's going on, other than the finance minister and the prime minister and some of these guys who are being paid by the corporations to change policy to have it work in their favor.
Yep. Stefan Molyneux puts it a really interesting way. He says that they come and they sniff you. They do the sniff test,
Yeah.
which means they're coming up to, what do you want from us? Oh, you want you security, you want safety, you want freedom, whatever it is, and then they offer you that. They promise you that to get your vote. I mean, you don't. They just
I have
follow through on their promises. There's so much proof of that.
Exactly. Like I had a friend today who posted on my Facebook account a cute little gremlin. This is a politician before elections and then a werewolf after elections.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's pretty much what the majority are.
And
not to discount them, but most of them are.
Well, and I mean, they're even sharing, we talked about this earlier today, Nicole, they're even sharing now they're airing their opponents' dirty laundry. And they all have dirty laundry, and they're all busy. Did so-and-so, when they were in office, they did this and such did that. And that person did this and that person did that. And they're not lying. But what's happening,
exactly.
people tend to, if you're, say, for example, a liberal, then you just eat up all the conservatives did this or the NDP did that. And you tend to ignore what the liberals have done. And I think it's really important because this is our future, that we keep an open mind and not accept the best of the worst. And that's what tends to happen.
So on that note, so that people don't get too sidetracked, I'm going to start the other video.
Okay.
And, this one's a little bit longer, but they need to really listen because this is the proof of what this gentleman was talking about. And, they'll be able to get a better idea.
Thanks so much for joining us. We couldn't thank you enough for supporting us over at SGT Report and at libertymill.com. We have on the line a good friend, an old friend, and somebody who we've interviewed at least a dozen times in the past. It's Bix Weir from roadtoroota.com. Bix, how are you?
I'm doing well, Scott. Thanks for the call.
Thanks for coming on, Bix. So, guys, you know that I've been doing these news updates recently. Bix, I've been trying to do this sort of news recap every week, and this week I'm not going to be able to do it. But I've been tracking the news items from just the past week, and they're stunning. And I just want to start the interview by recapping the extremely dramatic news headlines that have come out related to precious metals and the dollar just in the past week. And then stick with us, guys, because we are going to cover some of the most incredible information that you've ever heard with Bix. Bix, you got a second? Let's run through these headlines.
We're good.
And I want to start with a headline from you, Bix, and it's this. The elephant in the room just stepped on a gold rigger. Barclays head of spot gold trading quit. And this next one from Zero Hedge. China signs non-dollar settlement deal with Russia's largest bank. Also from Zero Hedge, who needs the U.S.? Russia and China finally signed historic $400 billion Holy Grail gas deal. And from Wall Street on Parade, inquest of that dead J.P. Morgan banker, VP Gabriel McGee, case closed, move along. They've just ruled it a suicide without much evidence proving it so. And this one from Washington's blog, did the Fed launder $141 billion through Belgium to hide massive increases in QE? And from Paul Craig Roberts, more on the Belgian Treasury purchases, and he talks about that mysterious Belgian buyer, which according to Annie Hoffman is probably the Fed, and we just interviewed Peter Schiff, and he thinks it's more likely the ECB, but the bottom line is these central banks are now the buyers of last resort, because nobody wants this paper trash coming out of the U.S. government. Here's one from Goldcore. As Russia dumps a record amount of U.S. treasuries, here's what it's buying. It's buying gold. Press TV reveals a new study. Conspiracy theorists saying government dupes are crazy and hostile. Bex, I could go on and on. I'm going to finish up with just a couple more, but I think that's an interesting one because those of us that have been talking about the real news, the real truth of what's going on, have been labeled tinfoil hat conspiracy nuts. But now it's all out in the wide open. We know Barclays is manipulating gold, and if Barclays is doing it, certainly HSBC and JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs and all the rest of these criminal banks are at it as well. Another one here, China halts U.S. dollar transactions with Afghan banks. And from IntelliHubs, Soros sells all shares of Citigroup, Bank of America, and JP Morgan. And Bix, as you know, Citigroup
and JP Morgan are the two primary banks involved in the futures shenanigans. And lastly, here, Zero Hedge outlines the details of Barclays' proven gold manipulation. Barclays fined for manipulating price of gold for a decade, sending bursts of sell orders. And ultimately that's the funniest headline, Bix, because I think they were only fined, 37 million euros for all of this malfeasance and criminality, which to me, Bix, means this is just going to continue. The penalties do not fit the crime.
Yeah, when you read through the Barclays, what happened there, it was only like a $3 million rig job, which is, they were protecting some derivative position they had. It was a moment in time. All those headlines you read, the real interesting thing to me is that's what they want us to know about. Right. The question is, what is going on really behind the scenes that they don't want us to know about? And that's where the real depth of this comes in. And even the purchases by Belgium over the U.S. debt, that it's hard to believe that the people who are in charge of the U.S. debt even reported any of this. How much was really done? That's just what's reported in the mainstream. They didn't have to report that. They could have hid that and buried it in their back room files. So it's really interesting what's happening now. And to me, it always comes back to the United States really is pushing the envelope to try to destroy the dollar. That's why we're pushing on Russia. That's why we're pushing on China. That's why we're announcing all these the rigging and the malfeasance going on in the financial system. It's time for the U.S. to end this game, and that's what I think is going on right now with all these headlines.
It's crazy when people hear you say the United States wants to end the dollar, but I've made the point now to Peter Schiff, to Andy Hoffman, to anybody that will listen to me in an interview, that people need to remember who is killing the dollar right now, and it is the people running this government. It is NATO and the U.S. government pushing Putin into more and more deals, more anti-dollar deals with China by surrounding Ukraine and threatening Putin and Russia, and they are hastening the demise of the dollar. And all of those headlines I just read were from the last week, and that's what's so insane about this. That's what's so stunning about the quickening of the collapse, as I've been calling it. And what I wanted to do here, guys, in the next 40 minutes, with 40 solid minutes here with Bix before he has to go, I want to talk about the conspiracy at the DTCC, because Bix was one of the many people featured on America's Book of Secrets, The Secret Underground. And I'm not sure that's even aired yet. Has it, Bix? Did you catch it? Or did it air and you weren't in it?
It aired and they took me out of it. And I just confirmed with my contact there 2 weeks before, and they said, "Oh my God, it's going to be great." And they pulled my segment. So
okay, but now I want to say something very important here, because that is significant that you were pulled from it, because I did see the one about precious metals manipulation. I saw Alex Jones in it. I saw Bill Murphy in it. I saw a number of people from our sphere of influence in it, and I saw you in it. So you were in one of these, but you weren't in this latest one about the DTCC, which maybe means you were sharing some very, very critical information that they did not want heard.
Yeah, it's true. That show, it touches on the things that are already out there in the alternative media, the gold manipulation, all the conspiracies that are already talked about. They don't talk about the ones that have not been revealed yet, and that's what I was doing with the DTCC information, was telling them about something that is gigantic, and it's not in the mainstream media yet.
Yeah, and I want to go through these points of the things you covered in that interview that were not broadcast. So let's just start at the very basics. The DTCC. Why is it so secretive, and why is it so darn important?
Well, it's the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, and it has two functions. One is to clear financial transactions, meaning settle up with the money and the title and the paperwork, and then two, it holds all these documents and title and proof of ownership and trust. So those are the two functions. And with our current system of high-frequency trade going a million trades per second, it's impossible to do. So none of these transactions, not none of them, but a lot of them, over 300 million per day, are never settled.
And that's important for people to remember. When we talk about the big picture of manipulation, when we talk about the fact that there's no more rule of law in the United States, when we talk about the fact that there's no recourse to the little guy, when we talk about the fact that if you're smart, you may want to get out of this paper system and into tangible assets, this is really at the crux of it. Because one of the questions that you wanted to make sure that they asked and understood the answer to was, how can the DTCC process and clear the billions of high-frequency trades that happen in milliseconds every day. Now let's think about that, you guys. Even with the assistance of computers on the settlement side, how in the world is the paper certificate going to transfer hands from the party that supposedly sold it to the party that supposedly bought it, when there's billions of these trades happening every day? And Fitz, you're saying that it's just not possible.
But it's not possible. And the way this all came about in the 50s and 60s, they were transferring title with couriers riding around bicycles and transferring money, and they got way behind. And so everything went digital. And the law says within 3 days these trades need to be settled. They changed the law. They said, well, these companies can net trade, meaning you have a lot of clients. They buy and sell billions every day. All you have to do is close up these net transactions. So it's not even the entire transaction. All they have to do is, what's different at the end of the day, and they can't even do that. So, with computers, with derivatives, that's how they rig the market. And these trades, they aren't really, as long as the music keeps playing, and the banks and the brokerage companies and your 401k company can pretend that they're buying these stocks and certificates in your name, then they can keep going, and as long as the systems keep going, nobody has to settle up. But at the end of the day, at some point, it almost happened in 2008, the game has to stop, and they're going to have to claim who owns what, and they really have no idea right now.
Now, we see on a daily basis, Andy Hoffman, you, and others document the manipulation of the market. We see the Dow propaganda average spike when it maybe should be falling. We see the plunge protection team in there working with Magic. And now we know quantifiably, which we all knew from Data's work and your work and others, that the manipulation was real. It was already quantifiable from Zero Hedge's work. We knew what was going on, but now it's absolutely smoking gun proven with this new Barclays revelation, and we know how they were doing it. And again, as I said in the beginning of this interview, Barclays is doing it. J.P. Morgan and Blake Masters and her team are most certainly doing it, as is HSBC, the world's most evil bank by many accounts. They're doing it. So you ask, why are there over 300 million stock trades that occur every day that are never processed or delivered? Vix, I think that speaks to the crux of this manipulation, because they can literally sell paper or trade paper to manipulate the market in whichever direction they want. And that's just as true for silver and gold as it is for common stocks, correct?
Yeah, that's true. And it actually should be cleared by the DTCC as well. Even the COMEX trade, they've changed all the swaps over to there. Basically, they're saying 99% of all financial transactions are now cleared by the DTCC, and they literally hold title to almost every single stock, bond, bearer bond, mortgage-backed derivative. It's all held at the DTCC.
Now, this is where it gets really crazy, guys. Now, this only gets more and more interesting. I got to tell you, I think this is going to be one of the most interesting conversations we've ever had with Fitz. Fitz, how many phony and duplicate stock certificates of mining companies do you think there are at the DTCC?
Nobody really knows. Truthfully, because these trades are never cleared and transfer of title never happens, you place a trade with your brokerage company, and you think, oh, they go out and buy the stock on the open market, take that stock, take title to that stock, and stick it in your account. That is not what happens. They take your money, they'll debit your account, and it'll look like from your side that you own a share of stock, but actually they take that money and they go gamble it themselves. When people trade in stock, they'll have to go out and try to find it, and then they'll sell it for you, that type of thing. But you can tell by the amount of shares traded every day, 5 to 10 days, and every single share ever created by that company trades hands. When you know that in your 401k, you haven't sold that mining company for years, and most people haven't. But what happens is the actual title to that share of stock is never purchased, and it's never sold. It just goes back and back in these high-frequency trades, and every once in a while they need to settle it up, but it's very rare.
All right, so here's the big one. Quick question, and then we're going to move on to the really juicy stuff. What is located at 55 Water Street?
55 Water Street is the address of the DTCC. All the documents, all the physical documents, the paper, the contracts for swaps, the contracts, the physical share certificates, all the everything you can imagine is located in the basement vault of the DTCC. A few years ago, they estimated it at $37 trillion worth of paper documentation that is down there. Now, a lot of it's backed up electronically, which is fine, but it's a lot easier to manipulate electronic data than it is to change physical certificates and bearer bonds, which are basically bonds with coupons that act as cash. And that's what was in the basement at 65 Water Street.
All right. Now, let's be clear about this. 55 Water Street in New York City, also in New York City, is the New York Fed, and we have J.P. Morgan. We have rumors of a tunnel connecting J.P. Morgan underground to the New York Fed, where literally they could move gold back and forth if they wanted to. Getting back to the DTCC. So, Fitz, what happened to the $36 or $37 trillion worth of paper securities that were submerged underwater during Hurricane Sandy? Guys, remember when Hurricane Sandy rolled in, conveniently, the basement at the DTCC flooded. What happened to those paper securities?
Well, nobody really knows. What happened was, obviously, Hurricane Sandy came in and flooded Lower Manhattan. And yes, the area around 55 Water Street was flooded completely. The strange things that happen are, first of all, it should have been watertight. The vault at the Federal Reserve a couple blocks away was watertight. The J.P. Morgan vault is watertight. And, those hold mainly bullion, and you don't have to really worry about water. This place has $37 trillion worth of paper securities. And when this hurricane came in, the DTCC claims that it is flooded completely. And they were trying to pump it out, and they don't know how much damage was done. But not to worry, okay, case closed, and they were done. And they pretty much stopped making announcements about it. So it takes them about 3 weeks to pump out the water. There's talk of, I think Goldman Sachs came out and said, a few billion was lost. And then they changed it that same day to million, and then they changed it that same day to say, oh, we don't think anything was lost.
Fitz, let me ask you this now. This is the craziest part, guys. When we imagine the banks in Mexico, we imagine the run on the COMEX, the LBMA being drained. We know these things are happening. This could be a smoking gun. Certainly, it's some sort of historic false flag that was put in place should they need to go back and reference it in the future to conveniently explain why they don't follow the securities and swap contracts. So Fitz, here's what I'm driving at. You wanted to cover this issue with the History Channel. Why were all of the gold and silver swap contracts transferred to the vault of 55 Water Street just weeks before it flooded? Now, is that the most convenient thing in the world, or am I just a tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy man?
Yes, that's exactly what happened. All the swap contracts were transferred to the DTCC about a month before, and it flooded. And the guy who got put in charge of this vault is Michael Dunn. And Michael Dunn was the guy at the CFTC who fought against setting position limits on silver, and he fought against everything. So then the bankers, he kicked out of the CFTC, and he goes to the DTCC, and he's put in charge of his vault. And then 6 months after he's put in charge of the vault floods, and all the records are destroyed. Talk about that conspiracy-rich environment. That's it right there.
Okay, so now it gets better, right? So you literally can't make this stuff up, right? If John Grisham wrote it in a novel, people would think it's too implausible, it's too ridiculous, and his novel would be rejected before it was published. All right, so let's just recap. $36 trillion worth of paper securities underwater. All the gold and silver swap contracts transferred to the vault just weeks before it flooded. And then a huge fire erupts in the DTCC vault basement just after all the water was pumped out. Can that even have happened?
It did. 20 people went to the hospital in that fire, and they said it was electronic issues in the basement. It just gets so ridiculous. And here's the coup de grace of all of this is the ending of the London fix for silver throws all those swap contracts into massive chaos because they're all settled on the London fix as the benchmark number. So basically, the contracts were destroyed, and then to top it all off, they won't be worth anything anyway because the benchmark number that settled all those contracts was the London fix, and the London fix is going away on August 4th.
I mean, it just leaves you breathless, doesn't it? I mean, Vic has said this quite a few times in just recent interviews. We're documenting the collapse because everybody thinks, everybody, when you imagine it in your mind, you imagine it as this one dramatic event that will unfold and be reported on, with Brian Williams tonight on NBC News. And that's not the way it's going to happen. It's going to happen in this domino-style fashion, which we are now documenting. This is what collapse looks like. And I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. I mean, the ex-DFTC Commissioner Michael Dunn was put in charge of the DTCC vault just months after it flooded. And he's the same guy who argued against Dodd-Frank swap regulations. I mean, these guys are essentially mafia, man, the way I look at it. And then you ask, why does the DTCC hold legal title to all stocks, corporate and muni bonds, physical bearer bonds, and even derivatives contracts under the nominee name, quote, Seeding Company, end quote. Can you tell us about that? Because that's a mind bender.
Yeah, that gets down to who legally owns everything. A lot of people say, oh, the Fed owns everything, or there's conspiracy guys saying, governments and these rich people own your life even because they own your social security number. This is a situation that is admitted to. All title for all securities are held in a central clearinghouse, DTCC, under the fictitious name of Seed and Company. Ultimately, they are the owners of whatever certificate, stock, bearer bond, mortgage-backed security, all of it is held in the name of Seed and Company. And, interesting. You'll see it on stock certificates every once in a while, and the name pops up. They never want to talk about it. But just think about the name, Seed and Company. What does seed mean? You're giving up ownership. You're ceding your ownership over to other people. It truly is something that they don't want to talk about. It shows you that not even the banksters own title to all these paper securities that are thrown around the world. And it's almost all of them. I mean, they're saying they own control 99% is held under this name, Seed and Company.
It's stunning. I mean, it's just this wordplay is just endless. I mean, take a look at the fact that the vault basement that was flooded at the DTCC is located at 55 Water Street. I mean, some of this stuff is just, I guess, coincidental, but some of it maybe not. I mean, Seed and Company, you've ceded your right to your stock and to your certificate. If the government and the Federal Reserve and the exchanges and the banks don't own the DTCC, who does? I mean, I guess you just covered that, but we don't know, do we?
That is the gigantic mystery. And it has to do, the truth can probably be found in the legal documentation going from the DTCC to Seed and Company. Of course, we're not privy to that information, but we do know that the stock exchanges, the brokerage houses, all sign over title to the DTCC, and they hold all title in trust. But then they, one step further, go on and put it, sign over legal title to Seed and Company. Who knows who really owns that? It doesn't get to the dark cabal and all that. There is some Federal Reserve oversight over the DTCC, but very little, and it's not ownership. So if you think the mystery of who owns the Federal Reserve is the big one, how about who owns Seed and Company? And why do they hold title to every single financial transaction, every single bond, mortgage, you name it, is all in the name of Seed and Company. It gets crazy.
Oh, my goodness. All right, so you say that the DTCC holds legal title to 99% of all mortgages in the world. Yes, folks, even yours. Your payment may go to Bank of America or Wells Fargo. Your payment may go to your local bank, a small bank. But is that true, Vic? DTCC holds legal title to 99% of all mortgages in the world?
Well, here's what happens. All the mortgages are bundled up and sold off in the mortgage-backed securities. Those mortgage-backed securities, with all the paperwork and all the title, is held by the DTCC, who transfers it over to Seed and Company. So that's how they get a hold of your mortgage. And even the banks, all the documentation and all the ownership responsibility is signed over to the DTCC, which is the clearinghouse. And you go through all this stuff, and you're like, oh my God, this is a kind of a secret a company that very few people know about, and it's even a subsidiary of that company. So it's kind of like, yes, it goes to the DTCC, which doesn't like to be in the news at all. And then even past that, it has to go to a shell company called Stevenson Company. So it is beyond complicated, and it's the unwinding of this is going to get really ugly. And because of the structure, and because all these banks are going to go down with their 10, 15 to 1 leverage, nobody's going to know who owns what, and then Stevenson Company will come out of the shadows and say, well, I own it all because it's been signed over to me as the trustee.
Let me ask you this. This was the last question, and I guess you just answered it, but it's so stunning that I think we should flesh this out a little bit further. Your question is this: what are the ramifications of the DTCC and their bankruptcy remote entity Stevenson Company owning legal title to 99% of all financial instruments in the world? And before you answer, do we need to revise that and actually say 99% of all financial instruments in the United States, or is it really the world? Because clearly the DTCC is not in charge of settling all world economic transactions. What's happening in Asia, they must have their own settlement system. Am I correct or do I have that wrong?
It's in transition for everything. They're pulling all of Europe into the DTCC. We look at China and the financial mortgage-backed derivatives that they own. Those are all held by the DTCC. Everything is getting funneled into the DTCC, especially with these new Dodd-Frank regulations that requires a settlement, place for the over-the-counter derivatives. Now it requires clearing, and the DTC is, every time you turn around, they're getting a new appointment. Okay, you're in charge of swaps and bullion swaptions. Those are the greatest derivatives ever, bullion-backed swaptions. But everything is funneling into the DTCC. And they even take over other clearinghouses. So it's like a giant black hole, and everything's getting sucked, everything around the world, not just the United States. So ultimately, that's the goal of these guys, is to suck everything into the DTCC and have it held by this entity called Stevenson Company.
Fix, I used the word stunning earlier in the interview because some of this information is so incredibly stunning. It's shocking in its scope. And it would be almost impossible for a new listener, somebody who has trusted the mainstream media, to join in and listen to this conversation and think that we're not nuts. Somebody who does not understand this language, because literally all of our listeners and you and me, we're speaking a different language. The sheeple people, as we refer to them so often, do not speak this language. And they believe everything coming out of the mainstream media. They believe everything coming out of their government. And they are not equipped to process this information. And for those of us in the know, for those of us who have been paying attention, this truly is the collapse. This is what it looks like, you guys. And so the fact that you can still run out and buy precious metals right now, affordably, like $20 silver, is truly stunning when we know that there is a twice daily silver fix, when we know that there is a twice daily gold fix. And now those corrupted enterprises are also coming. Now, Vix, what do you make of the silver fix, which is going to supposedly come to its conclusion and end after 100 years, nearly 100 years, on August 14th? Is it going to make a hill of beans a difference? Because there is no rule of law or justice. So will the manipulation actually end?
Well, it throws a gigantic wrench into the rigging mechanisms that they use, because the silver fix, it's fixed once a day in the morning in London by, or was fixed once a day in the morning by 3 banksters. And they sit around and they choose what the price is. And truthfully, when you think about it, it's the only price point, the only physical silver benchmark in the world, because there's no other exchange that has a physical component that the LBMA was supposed to do, contracts and futures and options. So when they say they're closing the London fix, where will we get our price for silver? We'll get it probably from the COMEX, which is futures and options. That's not the physical price. So it's kind of, it throws everything into a washing machine of trouble for the bad guys. especially because every single silver derivative contract that is based off physical silver has language in it that says settling language which references specifically the London fix as the benchmark value. And you're talking about billions and billions of silver derivative contracts that now are going to go bad starting August 14th. And Jeffrey Christian is kind of up in arms about this because he's the guy with Robert Rubin back in the 80s who really started the gold and silver derivative complex. And now these contracts are so incredibly complicated, and they talk about bullion and bullion swaptions. It's like an option on swaps for bullion. And they're all based off the London fix, and now they're going bad. And it's interesting because even the group that set the London fix, when they announced that they're closing on the 14th, says, we take no responsibility for anything after the August 14th date, and we believe everything needs to be settled up between now and then. So after August 14th, there will be no physical price of silver coming from a physical exchange. It's really scary for those who deal in derivatives and options and all that, because all these contracts that are based off the benchmark price of London fix now have nothing to go off. And they can't, how do they take it to court when you've got a contract that says you have to pay me X amount because this is based on this London fix price, which no longer exists?
You know, I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent here, but I'm going to tie it back to this German documentary. It aired on the news in Germany, and it was about gold price fixing and manipulation. Bruce Jansen brought it to our attention. When I mentioned this earlier, the headline was "Gold Price Fixing Manipulation Goes Mainstream on German TV." I just want to share a couple of quotes from that bit, because the fact of the matter is the rest of the world has already woken up. The rest of the world knows. And this German piece on the gold fix is evidence of that, right? And I want to just read a couple of quotes. The futures market intended to provide predictability and stability for futures prices is controlled by the following three banks: HSBC, Citibank, and JP Morgan. Their tools, paper, gold securities. Then they quote a trader, Thorsten Schulte, who says, quote, "It is possible to simply sell scraps of paper, thereby creating fear, especially among those who possess gold in its physical form, and who then may arrange to sell their metal, eventually resulting in a wave of fear," end quote. And then Dimitri Speck says, quote, "Gold is the opponent of debt-based money, and in particular, the U.S. dollar," end quote. The fact of the matter is that no matter what happens on August 14th, the rest of the world knows about this Ponzi scheme. And the genie's out of the bottle, and nothing is going to change for the powers that be. It's only going to get worse and worse day by day.
I agree 100%. Although I would say that I think people weren't ready to stand up against these guys back in 2008 when that crash was happening. I think they're ready to do that now. The next crash will be bigger and stronger and more understandable because we've got 5 years of learning about what happened last time. So that this time, when the banks go to Congress for another bailout, there's not a chance in hell that they're going to get it. And that's the too big to fail thing. And that's kind of what will get people off the couch when they see that their 401k and their savings account, their checking account is all going away because of the financial manipulations of these banks. They're going to stand up and say, "That's enough of this. We're going to go do something more sane and take these people who have led us into this spot. We're going to take them out and we're going to take over our country." That's the potential we have now, because there's enough anger and enough understanding going on right now that we can happen very easily.
Well, I just want to wrap up by saying that reason for the exist is to get this type of information out, because as I was of America.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Wow,
Hello.
Nicole.
Yeah. Well, there's still about 3.5 minutes left to go through. We went to commercial. And I was hoping that we'd get it. We talked a little bit too long a while ago. So we're waiting for Michael Tellinger to give us a call.
Yeah.
And hopefully he'll have called while we're finishing this up. and get ready to interview him. And Rick is going to be also ready to join us pretty soon.
Okay, sounds
so
good.
I'm going to take this back so that we can finish exactly what they're saying. Thank you.
Take them out, and we're going to take over our country. That's the potential we have now, because there's enough anger and enough understanding going on right now that I think it can happen very easily.
Well, I just want to wrap up by saying that the reason for the alt media existing is to get this type of information out, because you sent out an email blast explaining that you sat down with the producers of America's Book of Secrets, Secret Underground, for 3 hours. You did a 3-hour interview, and at the conclusion of that 3 hours, the entire crew was ready to run to the bank and withdraw their money from this criminal system. Then the information you shared never aired. And so now it's aired here. And Fix, I just think it's an incredible time in which we live right now. We are truly watching the collapse unfold. It's just an incredible time. And I guess I don't know what else to say, but I really appreciate the truth that you've shared here today, man. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I know that there's a few of us out here saying this stuff, but there's a lot of people with you. And a lot of people slowly but surely coming around. And all we have to do is keep talking about it. Talk about the truth, back it up with facts, and we'll get there. It's been a long process, but we will get there. And all of this is going to come out when the next crash happens and the banks go to Congress for a bailout and Congress says no. That is going to be the point. And we almost hit it in 2008, but that will be the point where we can choose to be free people once again or turn to our government for their help. And I don't think people are in the mood to turn to the government again.
Yeah, and I just want to conclude by saying that I'm not going to beat the horse to death in this interview, at the end of this interview here, about the value of 1 ounce physical gold or the value of 1 ounce physical silver. If you listen to this whole interview and you can't figure that out, then we can't help you. But we are there for you should you want to visit us at SQQ Report and thelibertymill.com. And you can read Victor's work on his website. Vic, you want to tell people about it?
Go to Ruda.com, and I send out free emails, and if you want to get deeper into it, I have a paid subscriber site, but there's plenty of free stuff that you can find, and it goes back to, the manipulation, who started it, how it started, and how it's been able to hold on for so long, and where it's going.
Well, guys, thanks so much, and we hope you had a fantastic holiday weekend and a terrific week ahead. We wish you only the very best. Thanks for taking the time to listen, and my thanks to our friend Fix Weir for taking time out of his day today to share this important information with all of us. Fix, thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Well, that was pretty interesting.
Oh, yeah, it sure was.
So, and there's Rick.
Yep. Hi, Rick. We have Rick Duchesne's joining us. Are you there, Rick? Oh, he must be muted. So yeah, I mean, what they're saying is it's all happening. It's just not happening maybe as people expected it to happen, right? And you have to really look, sort of follow. It's a progressive thing. And where's our politicians? What are they doing about this? What are they saying about this?
Exactly. Oh, there's Rick.
Yeah, I just regulated my audio. My audio wasn't on the right, wasn't on the internal mic, so I'm on now.
Okay, great. It was funny through that second video. He said something about the music, as long as the music keeps playing. And one of the things I had planned to sort of mention at some point today was somebody posted this the other night. That's the thing about musical chairs. There's never a loser as long as the music plays. And so I'm thinking, of course, as it relates to our solution, it's like the music doesn't have to stop playing. We just need a new song.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big hit. That was a good one. So it'll be interesting when Michael comes on, now that we've got some banking background, because banking is one of the areas that he talks a lot about, and the effect that it has, and we can talk to him about how what his thoughts are on the banking as it relates to Canada. And so, did we lose Nicole?
No, I'm here. I was trying to just make sure that I sent a text message to Chris to let Michael know that we're ready for him anytime he's available. He's ready, and that was to be expected if because he's getting off of his. They're doing their tour in Montreal right now. He was going to be done just at 7.
Yeah.
And hoping to be done at 7, and so they went in a little bit longer.
Well, and they probably have people that stop to talk to them afterwards too, right?
Yeah, so we told them we'd be patient.
Yeah.
This will be my second interview with us in 3 days, so we can't be greedy here. But that's why I thought these 2 videos would be very important for us to listen to. Those 2 interviews, because it sort of goes as to why Michael launched the Ubuntu party out in Africa, and his stance on the banking system and how fraudulent it is. And these guys pretty confirm, a lot of the stuff we already knew. However, I still suggest that we go back, and because of these videos, that we re-listen and then check these companies to make sure, everything's like what they're saying. And make the assumptions like for ourselves, so that we know exactly what these guys are saying, and to be able to have our own facts in researching this stuff. But this came to me by Tigana, and I've mentioned this before. Everything that we're doing here within IAQs, the decolonized movement, and political party elections, and the monarchy in Canada, as well as launching, the Occupy lawn signs anti-government campaign, everything that we're doing to be able to wake up the masses and get the people on board, because we really need to start taking matters into our own hands and start thinking for ourselves. And, we need to be responsible. So all of these things that we're doing, is being done by a group of amazing people that are sharing information with us every day, and everybody's kind of helping us to connect the dots. And I was telling this to Rick even earlier today and last night, that it's not just, 1 or 2 or 3 people doing this. It's a multitude of people coming together and sharing information, sharing, the latest news from either the HuffPost or RT or any other venue. And it's helping us to be able to see what is really going on, because out of the lips of the government comes out all these lies and these pretense, and and then when you look at the figures, it doesn't add up. But people need to start being interested in the figures, because that's how they're going to see the truth behind the lies.
Yeah.
So it's pretty important.
Yeah, and to recognize also, the whole system of voting, I don't know really that it was, in looking back and sort of knowing what we've learned, really that it was all that effective from our perspective. But, over the last, 2-3 elections, it's very apparent that it's not effective. And it's time for us to recognize that and not just stay with it for the sake of we've always done it that way. Or next time, this time is going to be the time, yes, this group is going to make a difference, even though two elections ago, they didn't make the difference. They were voted out the next time because the other party was going to make the difference. And I think I have been, am I still on?
Hello?
Hi, am I back? Was I gone?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Anyways, all I was saying, and I went on and on. All I was saying is that, let's not do something just because we've always done it, especially when we really have a hard time providing proof that it has been really effective, even in the past. So.
Okay, cool. I just got Chris is saying that they're trying to get this done, but his phone is going to be dying soon. So he wants me to call another number. So I don't know exactly how that can be done from your end, since you're the one producing the show.
Well, let me see if I can call and then bring him in from that call, or maybe I don't know. Do you want to put the
no
number?
idea. So
do you want to type the number in and I'll try? And
hang on.
Okay. So technical issues. Every show should be prepared, right?
Okay, hang on one sec. I'm just going to press enter.
Okay, so
there we go.
You and Rick chat, and I'll see if I can figure this out.
Yeah, there's a huge delay, and I don't know where it's coming from. Sort of like when we speak, the voiceover is there's at least a couple of seconds delay, or 1 second delay. Are you picking that up, Nicole?
No. Well, yeah. I can hear you first, and then so that could be the internet.
Yeah, most likely the connection is different than this afternoon.
Okay, now let's see here. Gail?
Yes.
Okay, are you trying to call?
Yeah, I'm going to try something. We'll see if, hopefully I won't get put on hold. Is he at that number now?
That's okay. They'll be Skyping.
Oh, they're coming on Skype?
They're coming on Skype, yes.
Okay.
But that's okay, because we can talk a little bit, and, Rick is the one that's more up on the Ubuntu party than I am anyways. And, in regards to the banking cartels and the purpose for Michael Tellinger to come up with the Ubuntu. So anyways, a lot of people are looking at doing this in different countries. So I'm going to let Rick mention making a few comments in regards to the videos that we just seen, and trying to relate that to what Michael is doing. Is that okay with you, Rick?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, great.
Did you have some comments, Rick?
Oh, for me?
Yeah. You have the floor.
Hold on. Oh, okay. All right. I was just wanting to wait till Michael gets on, because I got a couple of questions for him concerning the Ubuntu Party and the situation here in Canada as opposed to it in South Africa, because I know it's quite a different story in both countries. So I kind of wanted to ask for his take on that, and also maybe go over a little bit more what the Ubuntu Party is and how it could be implemented here in Canada. So basically, those are pretty much the main questions I would like to ask him, and let him talk a bit about that, and maybe just give us some of his own feedback, some of his own impressions on the implementation of the Ubuntu Party in Canada, as he sees it, something that would be applicable here.
Right. Yeah. Just looking at his book, maybe while we're waiting, I'm just going to read this. This is from the one of the first few pages of his book. Our countries are corporations, and the world is a business controlled by a small group of untouchable banking families. The laws that control our society have been meticulously structured over thousands of years to protect the corporations, while giving us the illusion that we are free. We, the people, are blissfully ignorant that we are the slaves and the assets of those who control the business. It is time to wake up and free ourselves. Nobody will do this for us. The universe awaits our action. so that it can respond through the law of attraction and welcome humanity into the universal community of beings of higher consciousness. So, well, Rick, do you want to just give a brief overview of Ubuntu, what you know about it, while we're waiting?
Well, what I'd like to get is most of it from Michael, because he's the initiator of the Ubuntu party, and I'd like him to speak about that before I comment on it or bring things forward. I'd like to have his take on all of that, so I don't want to really, spoil the thunder. I know he'll be coming on pretty soon, so I'd like to just wait a bit for him to come on and explain it himself. But the Ubuntu Party is basically it's an effort to get everybody into contributionism, which is actually something that Michael came up with. We could ask him, what inspired him to come up with that, but it's a beautiful demonstration of a near perfect society where everything would be harmonious and everything would just flow, and where there would be a great abundance that would come from it. And he explains it so much better than I could ever do that. And so I think that I see that David is on now.
Yeah.
I see his.
Michael, is this you or?
Hello.
Hi.
It's David here. Actually, Michael's just finishing up. The workshop went a little bit later, so he's just finishing up there. So I'm here for you guys.
Okay. Well, thank you, David. Why don't you take a moment and let us know how things are going with the tour, Modern Knowledge Tour.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, we've just completed the Ottawa stop, which is number 6 of 12. And so far, it's absolutely been phenomenal. We've had great reception. The people that have showed up at these events are absolutely incredible. We've had some great interactions with people. The response is just, it's mind-blowing. It's an honor. It's so amazing to put so much time and effort behind something and to see it actually change people and inspire people and to actually work out. Even though we've had our fair share of resistance and technical difficulties and all kinds of other interesting things, but it's part of the adventure, and I just honestly, I'm blown away by the whole process.
Yeah, we can relate to those technical issues all too well.
I'm sure anytime you get involved with these types of things, and you're always dealing with compatibility issues and then connection issues and the mics dropping out in the middle of things and then the batteries die and then, it seems sometimes one thing after another, but we're all up for the challenge. We're all, very motivated and passionate about this, and nothing's going to stop us now. We still have 6 cities left to go. We're going to take a couple of days break here in Ottawa, and then we're heading off to Toronto real soon here.
That's awesome. So how is, and we can talk more to Michael about this, but in your opinion, what's the response been as far from the people in relation to the Ubuntu segment of the tour?
Well, I'll tell you, there's been, people are standing in ovation at the end of everybody's presentation, really, so far. But people are really moved by this idea. It's a very advanced idea. I can tell that there's people that are skeptical. There's been a few people that have walked out. Very few. I've only seen 2 out of the whole, the 6 cities. And that could even just be because people have to go. I don't know. But by far, everybody is just totally, I see their eyes wide. I see their mouths open, and I see them clapping, and I see this joy on their face, almost like there's been sort of a relief where they realize, okay, there is other ideas at the very least. There's other ideas, and there's people trying to implement them, and there are people who care about change and that are working towards that change. And so to see that look in their face is priceless. And so now what we're getting is when we do the personal workshops after the events, people are just chomping at the bit to ask questions and share ideas and contribute what they think would be a good idea. And that's really what this whole journey was ultimately all about. So the response is fantastic.
So you're creating a network sort of across the country. Like, are you planning on keeping in touch with these people and connecting with them?
Absolutely, a network, and we've also, funny enough, we actually added another member to the team when we were up in the East Coast. We have Eliza Knockwood, who showed up at the event kind of in an odd fashion. She wasn't aware that we were coming into town, and it was her mother that got her a ticket and said, "Hey, Eliza, come down." And Eliza Knockwood she's from PEI, and she is an indigenous Mi'kmaq wisdom keeper. And she is related, right back through to the original culture here in Canada. And she has a lot of absolutely fantastic wisdom and knowledge and heritage to share. And she's a documentary filmmaker, and she's just been an amazing addition to the team. So, and then we're meeting in every single city. We're meeting people that we're exchanging emails with. Richard Dolan has been interviewing people who pull them aside and have to have some very, very incredible stories to share. We've even had some ex-military people come in. We've had, some government people come in, and it's just, we're getting a wide range of people, which is amazing. And there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, stay in touch. Let's try to work together. People are walking up to Michael Tellinger and saying, I'll start the Ubuntu party here in Canada if it's the last thing I do, So it's just great to see that people have that spark ignited again. And that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to show the world that Canada is a sleeping giant, that there's a lot of people here who just need someone to help give them some direction and to organize to some extent so that we can start getting something going. I mean, talking about these issues, as I'm sure you all know, is very difficult in the mainstream, and you feel alone, you feel isolated. But the magic of an event like this is that people realize, no, I'm not alone. There are people that care. There are people that are working towards this, and that's really why we did it. So, yeah, all amazing stuff all around for sure.
Absolutely, that's wonderful. And I mean that the way to shift things is in unity. I mean, we're not going to be able to do it separately. David's not going to do it on its own. Nicole's not going to do it on her own. Gail's not going to do it on her own. Rick's not going to do it on his own. We all need to come together.
Yeah, that's right. And it's so key that people realize that. And what's interesting, too, is you introduce the other aspect of it, which is that each person has their own individual intelligence, their own individual creativity, and their own ideas and their own experiences to bring to it. So it's sort of the different model where we're not trying to just bring everybody into some kind of a hive mind type of thing. We're trying to spark unity consciousness, but from the perspective of respecting the individual and allowing people the freedom to bring what they have to the table. Because I think that's what we're all. We're all individual units of consciousness that we all have something to share. And when we bring that power together, we can be that much stronger. And this is why we feel that this is a great way to start. As you start it off like a conversation, you have people present their information, such as the speakers that we're featuring, and then you just watch how people are just, they can't wait to talk to you about what they think, and they can't wait to tell you their stories. And I've had people walk up crying their eyes out at the end of this and just thanking us profusely for doing this. And then I have other people that are like, okay, so next year, this is how we're going to do it, and I'm going to tell my friend, and he's going to tell two friends, and so they're already like, they're going to force us to do this every year or something. I don't know. We don't really know where it's going to go, but already the people are deciding where this is going.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hopefully we can make some changes before, the next couple of years, because I think we're getting to the point where we need to make some changes.
Yeah, we're definitely running out of time. I think it's a race. I definitely feel that. There should be no illusion about that. But what I see here is very encouraging. It's different when you get off Facebook a little bit and you see that. Like, I get on there and it's great to interact with people around the world, but when you get in a room with people and you feel their energy and you look in their eyes and you talk to them and you hear their story and you can really, you communicate on so many different levels than just sort of, typing into a chat box somewhere. And people feel that too. They're like, oh my God, like I can actually speak and use my voice and share information. And I think this is just the start of something huge here in this country in terms of just keeping the conversation going.
Yeah, definitely. And even now, I think part of the whole programming is to make people feel, really poorly about themselves, feel that there is, your responsibility is to, stay in debt and just try to get by day. And when you're in a situation like that, which so many people are, it's really hard. And I don't like to use the word hope because to me, hope is sort of passive, but it's very difficult for people to have that feeling of empowerment or like there is something. As long as we're striving and working towards something, then it's so much easier for people to not get into those depression and feeling really bad, and a program or a tour like yours, like you were saying, is allowing people to see that there's other people that feel the same way and that are in the same boat, and let's get together.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, you're right. There's been sort of a hijacking of a lot of these different words and terms by the media, by the political world, and how they use these concepts like hope and change and all the things we want to hear. And we just keep getting let down again and again. So I can understand why a lot of people are, they're very leery when they use words like that. But, for lack of a better term, there is, a great deal of optimism that people can bring to this. And if we take all the elements in, we'd be realistic, we're street smart, and we realize the reality of what's going on in one sense, but in the other sense, to maintain that optimistic outlook, not to get too pessimistic, not to get too hopeless. We don't want to be in that state of mind at all because we can't really generate or create from that place. Yeah. So it's really about having a balanced view, and that's what I've been taking personally. I mean, I'm just as much of a seeker and a fan of these people's work and of this topic and knowledge base in general as anybody else attending this conference. Chris and I built the conference based off the conference we wanted to go to, and we just saw that it wasn't coming here. And so we say, hey, let's just try it. Let's just do it ourselves. And now we've been learning so much just by listening to these people speak, having the opportunity to interact with them personally, and I see the same look in everybody else's eye as well. And if we can just keep this going, I don't see why we can't create some of the change we want to see. I mean, even if it's just incremental steps, we can start swinging this thing around and at least making those transitions one step at a time in a different direction than the one we're currently on, right?
Right. Now, in your experience, you've only done 6 out of the 12, I realize. But where we're coming from, Final Decision Making Authority, sort of as being that's the foundation, like let's get that power back and then create, right? So you want to build the house, you want a solid foundation. And would you say people are, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, but we'll throw it out there.
Sure.
Are people feeling that that's, there's a lot of our programming that says, no, we can't do that because this is how it's always been. Do you think people would be open to that idea and see the power, that they have that power, just in your discussions? And I know I don't want to put you on the spot, but.
No. I mean, so you mean like we see the change happening in people from a state of being like there's nothing I can do to maybe there's something that I can do type of a thing? Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Even to, like, I think I don't think taking back Final Decision Making Authority is all that radical, because I have a feeling that people think they already have that. The problem is that they don't really have that.
Yeah.
That's the truth of it. And so when you say that to people, when I say that, well, let's take Final Decision Making Authority back, they're kind of like, look at me. And it's kind of like a concept that I've never thought of before or something. And initially, because of the programming, it's like, what? Like, we can't do that. Yet we absolutely can. And
yes, and I think I hear what you're saying, and I think that if we can at least inspire people to realize that if they can get around that within their own personal life first, like we all have these little spheres of of where we interact on. We have our, you know, our own self-development, you know, the internal development, and then that starts to move out to family, intimate family relationships, and then friendship relationships, and then social relationships, and then, of course, moving on to the stages of life, all the way out to a global situation. So we can't maybe start this from the back end and say, oh, we're just going to fix the world right now from the external, because it's just, you know, one person or even a small group can't maybe do that. But one person and maybe a small group can inspire it from the other way. And the more people that do that, it's like a ripple effect, you know. So if you start on an individual level, you sort of address your own, the things that are blocking you from expanding your own consciousness and your own thinking patterns, the things that are blocking a person from connecting to people that they maybe normally would never try to connect to. You start working on yourself in that way. Then what's interesting is that energy starts to become contagious. And this, from this conference, this is what has been proven to me, is that people do work well together. People do want to work well together. They do want to work on these things together. And so it really does have to start with the individual, the way I personally see it. And then it will start turning into groups of people that have done that. And then they'll start influencing, you know, people around them. And then it becomes that, eventually becomes that sort of 100th monkey syndrome, you know, in a way. And we're reversing the program, because the program is what is sort of dominating the collective consciousness. But if you start on that individual level of breaking that down, obviously recognizing what it is and then breaking down that process within yourself and identifying it, now you're changing that around, and then another person does it and another person does it, and it starts to influence the collective consciousness in the other direction. So I think that's what we're seeing on a global stage in small little bits, maybe not where we all want it to be, but people need to be encouraged that at least it's happening, you know, slowly, but it is happening. So do we have all the answers? No. Have we got this whole thing nailed and in the bag and we can all just go home and not worry about it anymore? No. But do we have to live in fear? No. You know what I mean? Like, there's a balance point there. So, and this is really the message that I've been taking away from a lot of the speakers, is that there are solutions. There is a long way to go yet, but be encouraged by the people we've been seeing here, and you know, being a Canadian and not really seeing this happen here before, or really have a huge response to this, and now being in a part of something that is generating that response. I don't know. I personally have to say I'm very, very optimistic now.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely am on board with we all need to take responsibility, and it begins with us. I mean, there's just no other way, for the reasons that you mentioned. So yeah, that's great. Nicole, you have any questions for David while we're waiting?
Well, actually, David, what we did is the first hour of the show, we presented 2 videos, and they were in relevance to what's going on within the banking system, which kind of actually confirms everything that Michael's been saying, and his reasoning behind the Ubuntu in Africa, that the Ubuntu party that he's launched in Africa. And, you know, it's kind of ironic that in September of 2013, this gentleman did he spoke at a conference, and people didn't really understand, or how can I say, didn't really believe his, actually this was Ned Goodman during his lecture, and people were kind of skeptical with his predictions about the money system and what the bankers were doing. And now, within the last deal with China and Russia, everything's really come to light. And he was absolutely spot on, basically, in most of the things that he's said so far. So we thought that get our audience to listen to these prior to Michael coming on. And then they'd be able to connect that. Yes, we need to do something. Yes, we need to take control of our laws, especially our banking laws. And that's something that Canadians can do, and everybody else in other countries. But it's up to us to make that initial move into saying, hey, the government is the people. It's not these MPs that are, towing the party line and not listening to the people and only doing what the corporations are doing because they're being funded by them. So, it's nice that with what Michael is doing, and even Richard and you and Chris and everybody involved, and our crew, Paul, Val, Barbara, my other two Barbs, everybody, Tigana, everybody who's connecting the dots here, like we've got so many friends online that are connecting the dots, bringing the information together, and all we're doing is trying to assimilate the piece of the puzzle and to see where we can bring in things. And I think the Modern Knowledge Tour kind of brings all that into a better perspective as to, you're going across the country, you're physically connecting to people. And that's what we need to do on a physical level, to bring everybody back to, this is our responsibility. It doesn't stop after we turn off Facebook. And that connection with the people, like you were saying, you're seeing their eyes, expression. I mean, what a beautiful place to be in. And I could hear the tone of your voice from last week, and your excitement. It's almost like we were going to have to peel you off the ceiling anytime soon.
Well, it's amazing what it does, and it's because people bring energy and they bring light to this situation, and you feel it. And even though I'm absolutely exhausted, it's very little sleep. We're doing events back to back and driving, and it's very stressful. I've never felt more energized, honestly, and it's just because of the fact that this is something that I personally am very passionate about, and I see the progress. And I'm working with great people who I respect and who I also get charged from. And that combination is something that I've honestly never experienced to this level before. And to me, it proved it to me that when you bring people into a situation where they're all sharing and they're all looking at this honestly, and we're having this conversation, and we're coming here honestly and openly trying to investigate what's really going on and looking for solutions, it just proves to me that this whole idea that human beings need to be controlled by some kind of governmental or political or monetary type system, it's the only way, and we're not, otherwise it'll be all chaotic. It just kind of reiterates to me that it's a line of crap. It's a line of propaganda, and that the truth is that we find the best of us when we are given the true facts of the matter. I think we can handle the truth. And I think that once we wrap our heads around that, we can very easily find the solutions, and I just so happen to be aligned with people like Michael, like Richard. We also had Carrie Cassidy here. We're meeting Linda Moulton Howe in Toronto. We're working with so many great people that are all looking for the same thing. And when you bring all that energy into one place, man, it's indescribable. And I think it should give people a lot of hope for the future, really.
Exactly. It's kind of, at first when I started finding out everything that they were doing, it was like going down the rabbit hole, and I ended up in a deep depression. And I didn't know, how in the world we were going to get out of this mess. Then all of a sudden, solutions started happening, connecting with people. It took a few years. But now, what a good example was when we came up with, okay, let's do Occupy lawn signs. The government is going through elections, like at the provincial level. They've got their lawns, their signs out there. Let's do a people's, how can what was the word that I was using? Our own campaign, in regards to everything that we think is wrong with this government and what's going on, like chemtrails and everything else. So when you're looking at all that, I told this woman, I said, oh my gosh, I've never had so much fun creating these memes. Like, who knew that fighting, world government and all of these things that are wrong with the world and all this corruption, it makes you feel alive, and not so much doom and gloom. And it's like, yes, we can do this. And your energy that when you came on, I'm sure, like I felt it, and I'm sure that Rick and Gail also felt it, and everybody listening, because you were just making me vibrate anyway, and it's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm just paying it forward, and all I could do is ask you guys to do the same. Keep that keep that charge going. Be hopeful. Know that you're not alone, and there's great people working constantly, and the show that you're doing and the work that you're doing is valuable. The people that are listening, the fact that you're listening, you're contributing by, contributing to this as well. Everybody should bring their own uniqueness forward, and everybody has a voice, and that's what this is about. And on that note, I do want to say, too, that Michael just walked up to me here. He's finished up. I'll let you know he's pretty tired. He had a long day. So if you guys are cool with him doing just like a few minutes with you, I can let you say hello to Michael Tellinger.
Sure, that'd be great. Thanks, David.
Hello?
Hi, Michael.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, it's Gail and Nicole and Rick again. How are you doing?
All right. How are you guys doing?
Good, good. We hear you've had a long day, and we're really appreciative of you joining us again.
Yeah, it has, but it's always energizing. So while you feel tired at the end of this, you also feel inspired by having to share having been the opportunity to share your knowledge and philosophy and research with people, but also learn from the people that come. And that's an amazing experience. I always learn from all these situations.
Yeah, well, David was just telling us how inspired he is by the response from the Canadians. So we're really excited to hear about that as well.
Yeah, it is. It's been really fantastic. I guess by now I'm starting to realize that the message of Ubuntu and contributionism is a global and universal message. It's once people hear it, it resonates with everybody because they know that this is it. This is the source. Truth and unity maker, the things that unifies us that everyone's been looking for, and they can see through the nonsense and the lies and realize that this is something that can really unite people and bring us into a situation of abundance very quickly.
Right, it's very exciting. Now, would you feel comfortable answering a few questions for us? I know you're probably worn out, but
go for it.
Okay.
Go for it.
I think Rick had one. Rick, did you?
Yeah, but I understand. I understand that Michael is really tired, and I can relate to that experience because I've done a whole bunch of stuff like that before myself. So I think that with the little time that we have left, I would really like to hear him just give us pretty much a little resume of how it's going for him, and maybe speak a little bit about whatever he wants to speak about that has to do with the Ubuntu Party, the banking system, and all that, just to get people a little bit in tune with it. Because Michael, you might not know, we just had 2 videos that we presented in the first hour on the banking system and the fraud that's at play, and all on derivatives and everything, trying to get people to understand how serious the situation really is and how the collapse is real, and it's not just a fiction of imagination, it's actually happening. And it's the reason why we have to really get away from this illusion that we all have that the government is a good thing and that it's doing all that it can to help the people, which is completely false. It's just corporate and everything else. So just, I mean, the floor is yours. Give us an ad-lib little rendition of what you've been going through and everything else, and we'll just listen.
Well, thanks very much, Rick. My actions against the banks have really come to an end now. I lost. You can't win against the banks. However, there has just, before I left South Africa, there was one case that for the first time in history now in South Africa, we've got a judgment against the bank in favor of the guy that took them on, and he got the judgment based on the fact that the bank were no longer the owner of the contract, and they did not have the legal right to proceed against him. They securitized the contract, and the new owner is a third party, and it was not the third party that took action against the guy. So he won, and this is a historic moment in South African legal and banking history. And this might open the floodgates for people like me and many others to go and take legal action against the banks for previous judgment that were handed down in favor of the banks that were actually fraudulent, and all kinds of shenanigans going on behind the scenes where banks pay off lawyers, judges, and to give judges pre-written judgments to hand down, and all that kind of horrible activity has been going on for too long. So exciting, interesting times as people are waking up and realizing, as you said, discovering the global banking fraud. And for those people that have not yet figured this out, the entire global banking and financial industry is the largest organized crime syndicate in the world. This is important for people to realize. That is not a noble industry that is there to help the people. It is a crime organization, criminal organization that is there to completely and utterly undermine and control humanity and take total control of everything there is that now belongs to the people. With the Ubuntu Party, now that the elections in South Africa are over, the elections were on the 7th of May, we went into the elections with the Ubuntu Party as a political platform for the philosophy of contributionism and Ubuntu, really just to spread the information and use the political platform to spread that knowledge. And we achieved exactly that, although we did not get into Parliament because we were robbed of about 200,000 votes based on certain statistics and reports. We went into the elections with 1 million followers, and we ended up with 8,000 votes. So you clearly know that there was some serious foul play at work there, you know. But what it did do for the Ubuntu movement is it gave us global credibility, visibility on a level that we would not have had, and it has now brought the Ubuntu movement into more than 200 countries around the world. As we speak, there are about 120 countries around the world that are in contact with Sid, one of my partners that participated in the elections with the Ubuntu Party. And we are now setting up Ubuntu parties in probably around 120 countries of the world. Some will happen quicker than others, and we hope that Canada is going to be one of the first. It looks like Dave and Chris and the organizers of this Modern Knowledge Tour are going to be the guys that will probably start the Ubuntu Party here in Canada. And the growing following and support we are creating on this tour throughout Canada is going to be the founding seeds and the seeds of consciousness that will be the founders of this Ubuntu contributionism movement here in Canada. And this is really exciting. So I see the Ubuntu movement growing and becoming a political platform of consciousness, the first conscious political movement around the world that is beyond borders, transnational movement of unity consciousness that can infiltrate the political arena and start to affect change from within, inject the virus of consciousness into the political beast and start to bring down the political control and the corporate political control over the people and their countries and bring back the power to the people, because ultimately the country belongs to its people and the government is supposed to be a servant of the people. And this is what we keep reminding everybody and have been, especially in the elections of South Africa, just to rebalance this status quo. People have forgotten that the government is supposed to be the servant of the people. We're so battered and bruised by the abuse of the people by the government that we forget the way it should be. And like you said, if people still think that the government is their friend, they need to wake up. The government is not your friend. The government is an instrument of the central banks, and it'll do everything that they're dictated to by the central banks to keep the people in line, keep the people following orders, change laws, keep imposing stricter and stricter draconian rules and regulations and legal systems that oppress the people more and more. And clearly that is not the behavior that we expect from a servant of the people, namely the government of the people. So clearly they're not working for the people and working for some other organization.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, that's right.
Michael, this is Nicole, and we have a friend of ours that is in the chat room right now, and he's asking, he says to Michael, do you see the party system as a flaw in the political system we have today? And I think you pretty well answered that, but if you can put it in your own great words there, that would help.
Well, first of all, the Ubuntu and the contributionist philosophy is very vocal and strong on telling people and reminding people that we don't need to be governed. People don't need to be governed. They can govern themselves in their own communities. So bring back the decision-making to the communities, to the people in every community that are bound by a larger understanding of common law principles, very basic common law principles, guided by the needs of different communities, working together in cohesive unity to provide and make sure that everything is done so that we create abundance on every level. And this is the very simple philosophy of contributionism that I've just been sharing this whole afternoon with a group of people here in Ottawa. And it just resonates so much with people. You know, at the end of these presentations and these workshops, people get so inspired. They just want to run out there and do stuff. And that is what keeps me driven and keeps me going forward. And, you know, this is tiring work, as you can imagine, going through the country, speaking day after day, repeating the same information. It is really tough work, but it is very inspiring to see when people respond and they resonate with a message and they just want to go out there and do something.
Definitely. Starting the momentum or the tsunami.
Yes, exactly.
We have about 1 minute, I think, maybe 2 minutes before the show is over. Do you have any last comments, Michael, before you go?
Yeah, I just want to say, you know, please go into the Ubuntu websites, join the Ubuntu Party, the Ubuntu movement on the Ubuntu Party website. We will be creating a new website soon, but right now we're creating a global database of the people in different countries. So go on there, go into click join us, and then fill in your details so that we can add you to or you'll automatically be added to the Canadian database. So when we communicate with people in Canada, you're on that list, and we can put you in touch with all the other people, like-minded people in Canada, in your city, in your area, so you can start growing this family of consciousness in your area as quickly as possible. It's very exciting times. So join us online, ubuntuparty.org.za, ubuntuparty.org.za, and lots of exciting things happening.
Great. Thank you so much for taking the time. Oh.
Okay, I have just one more question, Michael. Do you have any of your books with you?
Yeah, we've got books here now. They finally arrived in Montreal, so we have books with us on the road, yeah.
Okay, could you hide a copy of each for me, please? We're going to see you on Friday.
Yeah, no, I only have the Ubuntu Contributionism book with me. I didn't bring the others with me because the focus is on contributionism, and it's really going to become the overwhelming focus into the future from now on.
Okay, so I'm putting in my order right now.
Okay, it's done. It's done.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Michael, for joining us. David, are you still with us?
No, David is actually standing over there.
Oh, okay.
Can see he's gesticulating, waving his arms, explaining things to people. So
okay.
He's doing a good job there.
Okay, I just have a quick question from the chat room. They were just curious of the numbers of people turning out in Ottawa and Montreal. Can you give us a ballpark figure on that?
I think we had about 100 people here in Ottawa. Montreal, we had a nice crowd, probably 150 people.
Okay.
So the numbers are good. They could have been better, but this is the first time they've put this together.
Yep.
And this is it. We're planting the seeds of consciousness in all the places we've been.
Right. Great. Thank you so much. All the best with the rest of your tour, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Excellent. Thank you very much, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Michael.
Show.
We'll see everybody next week.
Evil. There is only power in those too weak to seek it.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Be sure to tune in weekdays 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time for Strange Universe with Sean David Morton. A strange, interesting, and engaging wide variety of topics. So be here. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com.
I would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Join the Sacred Matrix with hosts Janet Kirillesson and Dr.